Before you listen to another word, I want you to question something you have believed your entire life. What if the voice inside your head isn't actually you? What if the voice that constantly compares, constantly worries, constantly gets offended, constantly seeks approval, constantly whispers, "You're not enough," has been lying to you all along? Most people spend their entire lives obeying that voice, never realizing it is the very thing creating their suffering. The Buddha revealed a truth so profound that it has awakened millions of people for over 2,500 years. He taught that the greatest deception does not come from the world. It comes from the false identity you unknowingly built inside your own mind, an identity that keeps you chasing, competing, defending, and suffering, without ever questioning who is really in control. In this video, you will discover 5 timeless Buddhist truths that slowly uncover the greatest illusion of all. And the final lesson reveals the one truth your ego will fight until the very end to keep hidden. The moment you truly see it, the grip your ego has held over your life may begin to disappear forever. So, before we begin, take a quiet moment and ask yourself, who am I without my thoughts? If you're ready to see what your ego never wanted you to see, subscribe, join this journey of awakening, and stay with me until the very end. Because the person who finishes this video may not be the same person who started it. 1. The day you mistook your ego for your true self. Imagine a small child standing in front of a perfectly clear mirror for the very first time. The child looks into the reflection with complete innocence. There is no judgment, no comparison, no pride, no shame. The child is not wondering if they are attractive enough, smart enough, successful enough, or important enough. There is only simple awareness. The child sees a face, smiles, and then moves on. There is no heavy story attached to what is being seen. But as the years pass, something quietly begins to change. The world slowly starts giving that child an identity. Parents, teachers, friends, and strangers all leave small impressions. Some say, "You are very intelligent." Others say, "You are too sensitive." Someone praises your talent. Someone laughs at your mistakes. Someone compares you to another child. Someone tells you to become stronger. Someone tells you not to cry. Little by little, these words begin to settle deep inside your mind. At first, they seem harmless, but every compliment, every criticism, every expectation becomes another thread. And without realizing it, those threads begin weaving together into something you never consciously chose. They become a mask. One day, that mask becomes so familiar that you stop noticing it. You no longer remember the person who existed before all the labels. You stop seeing yourself directly. You only see the identity you have spent years building. This is where the ego quietly enters your life. The Buddha never described the ego as a monster hiding inside the mind. He described it as a misunderstanding. It is not something evil, it is simply something mistaken. Imagine standing beside a calm lake on a moonlit night. You look down and see the moon reflected in the water. Suddenly, a gentle breeze creates small ripples. The reflection begins to shake and break apart. Would you believe the real moon has been damaged? Of course not. You understand that only the reflection has changed. Yet this is exactly what happens every day inside the human mind. Someone criticizes you. Someone rejects you. Someone ignores your message. Someone receives the opportunity you wanted. Immediately, your inner reflection begins to shake. The ego quickly whispers, "Something is wrong with you." But is something truly wrong with you? Or has only the image you created of yourself been disturbed? There is a very important difference between the two. Your true awareness has never become smaller. Your ability to observe has never been damaged. Your deepest nature has not changed. Only the story you believe about yourself has been challenged. The problem is that most people never learn to separate the story from the one who is watching the story. That is why every opinion feels personal. If someone praises you, your entire day suddenly becomes brighter. If someone criticizes you, your confidence disappears within seconds. If people admire you, you feel valuable. If they ignore you, you begin questioning your worth. Notice how much power this gives other people over your inner peace. Your happiness rises and falls with their words. Your confidence rises and falls with their opinions. Your identity rises and falls with circumstances that constantly change. The Buddha understood that this is the hidden beginning of suffering. Life itself is not always the source of pain. The ego is, because the ego quietly turns every experience into a story about me. A rainy morning is no longer just rain. The ego says, "Today is ruined." A friend forgets to call. The ego immediately says, "Maybe they don't care about me anymore." Someone else succeeds. The ego whispers, "You are falling behind." A small mistake at work suddenly becomes, "I always fail." One uncomfortable conversation becomes, "People never respect me." Have you noticed how quickly the mind creates these stories? Most of them happen automatically. They appear before you even have time to question them. The strange part is that you usually believe them without asking whether they are true. Imagine wearing a heavy suit of armor every single day. In the beginning, the armor feels useful. It protects you from being hurt. It makes you feel stronger. It gives you confidence. But after wearing it for many years, something unexpected happens. You completely forget that you are wearing armor. The weight becomes normal. The stiffness becomes normal. The discomfort becomes normal. Eventually, you mistake the armor for your own body. Now imagine someone asking you to remove it. Instead of feeling relieved, you become frightened. Without the armor, you feel exposed. You wonder who you are without it. This is exactly what happens with the ego. Your achievements become armor. Your reputation becomes armor. Your intelligence becomes armor. Your appearance becomes armor. Your possessions become armor. Even your suffering can become armor. Some people become so attached to their painful past that they no longer know who they would be without it. The ego is willing to wear any identity as long as it has an identity to protect. That is why it constantly asks for more. More recognition, more success, more control, more certainty, more proof that it matters. Yet no matter how much it receives, it never feels complete. Because the ego is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No amount of praise is enough. No amount of money is enough. No relationship is enough. No achievement is enough. For a brief moment, it feels satisfied. Then another desire appears, another comparison, another fear, another goal, another reason to feel incomplete. The Buddha offered a question that quietly breaks this entire illusion. It is a question the ego does not want you to ask. If every label disappeared today, if your career vanished, if your possessions disappeared, if nobody remembered your name, if every compliment and every criticism faded away, if your past no longer defined you, and your future no longer worried you, who would still be here? Sit with that question for a moment, not intellectually. Feel it. The ego becomes deeply uncomfortable because it has no answer. It only knows labels. It only knows roles. It only knows stories. But awareness does not need a label to exist. The sun never wakes up wondering whether it shines brightly enough. The ocean never compares itself with another ocean. The mountains never apologize because they are not taller. A flower never refuses to bloom because another flower is more beautiful. Nature simply expresses what it already is. Only the human ego constantly asks, "Am I enough? What do people think about me? How can I become more important? What if I lose everything?" These questions feel normal because we have listened to them for so many years. But the Buddha gently invites us to notice something extraordinary. You are not the voice asking those questions. You are the quiet awareness listening to them. The moment you begin seeing this clearly, something begins to change inside you. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop defending every mistake. You stop chasing approval from people who cannot decide your worth. You begin responding instead of reacting. You begin listening instead of arguing. You begin living instead of performing. For the first time in many years, you experience a peace that does not depend on being admired, accepted, or understood. It is a peace that was always within you. It simply remained hidden beneath the noise of the ego. But recognizing the mask is only the first step. Because even after you begin seeing through your false identity, the ego has another powerful strategy for keeping you trapped. It no longer controls you through identity alone. It controls you through an endless hunger that can never be satisfied. And unless you recognize that hunger, you will spend your entire life chasing something the ego was never meant to find. 2. The ego's endless hunger can never be satisfied. Have you ever noticed something strange about happiness? There are moments when you are absolutely certain that one thing will finally make your life complete. You tell yourself, "Once I get that job, I'll finally relax. Once I earn more money, I'll stop worrying. Once I find the right relationship, I'll feel whole. Once people recognize my value, I'll finally be happy." For weeks, months, or even years, your mind keeps pointing toward the future. It convinces you that peace is waiting just beyond the next achievement. Then one day, you finally reach the goal. You receive the promotion. You buy the house. You fall in love. You gain the respect you wanted. For a brief moment, your heart feels full. But then something unexpected happens. The excitement begins to fade. The joy that felt so powerful becomes ordinary. Almost without noticing, your mind quietly starts searching for the next thing. Now it says, "This isn't enough. You need something bigger. You can do better. There must be more." The finish line moves once again. This is one of the greatest tricks of the ego. It never allows you to arrive. The Buddha saw this pattern long before psychology gave it a name. He taught that the ego survives by creating desire after desire, because if you ever became completely content, the ego would lose its purpose. Think about a fire. If you keep throwing wood into it, the flames grow larger. But does the fire ever say, "I have enough now"? Never. The more it receives, the more it demands. The ego behaves in exactly the same way. It promises satisfaction, but it is built on dissatisfaction. It tells you that one more success will complete you. One more compliment will heal your insecurity. One more purchase will make you feel important. One more relationship will remove your loneliness. But after each desire is fulfilled, another one quietly takes its place. It is like trying to drink salty ocean water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. At first, the water feels refreshing, but every sip creates a deeper thirst than the one before it. The ego offers the same illusion. It promises peace through endless chasing, while secretly making peace impossible. Look at how this plays out in everyday life. A person spends years dreaming of owning a beautiful car. The day they finally buy it, they feel proud and excited. They drive it everywhere, imagining that people admire them. A few months later, another model is released. Suddenly, the same car no longer feels special. Nothing about the car has changed. Only the ego has. Or think about social media. Someone posts a photo and receives hundreds of likes. For a few hours, they feel important. Their confidence rises. Their mood improves. But the next day, they post again. This time, fewer people respond. Almost immediately, doubt appears. Did people stop liking me? Am I becoming less interesting? The ego quietly attaches your value to numbers on a screen. Now your peace depends on something you cannot control. This is how the ego steals freedom. It convinces you to place your happiness into the hands of the world. The Buddha often reminded his students that nothing outside the mind remains the same forever. Beauty changes. Money comes and goes. Health changes. Relationships evolve. Reputation rises and falls. Even the strongest emotions eventually pass away. So if your happiness depends on things that constantly change, how can your happiness remain stable? It cannot. That is why the ego is always anxious. It builds its home on moving sand. Imagine trying to build a beautiful house beside the ocean. Every night, the tide washes away part of the foundation. Every morning, you rebuild it. Day after day, year after year, you become exhausted. Not because building is difficult, but because you chose unstable ground. The ego builds its identity exactly like that. It builds itself on praise that disappears, on success that fades, on youth that changes, on possessions that eventually break, on opinions that can change overnight. Then it wonders why it never feels secure. The Buddha offered another way. Instead of asking, "What else do I need to become happy?" he invited people to ask, "What is making me believe I am incomplete right now?" That single question changes everything. Because maybe your suffering is not caused by what you lack. Maybe it is created by the belief that you are lacking something. There is a huge difference. Imagine a man carrying an empty bowl across a village. Every person he meets places something inside. One gives him fruit. Another gives him gold. Another offers beautiful flowers. Another places precious jewels into the bowl, yet the man continues begging. Finally, someone asks, "Why do you keep asking for more?" The man looks down in confusion. There is a hole in the bottom of the bowl. Everything he receives quietly falls through. The problem was never the village. The problem was the bowl. The ego is that bowl. No matter how much life pours into it, it always whispers, "Not enough." This is why some of the richest people remain unhappy. Some of the most admired people still feel insecure. Some of the most successful people secretly fear losing everything they have. The ego does not become peaceful by receiving more. It becomes more afraid of losing more. The more it owns, the more it has to protect. The more praise it receives, the more criticism it fears. The more power it gains, the more it worries about someone taking it away. Its hunger creates its fear, and its fear creates even more hunger. The cycle never ends, unless you stop feeding it. This does not mean giving up your dreams. The Buddha never taught people to reject life. He taught them to stop expecting temporary things to provide permanent peace. You can work hard without making success your identity. You can enjoy wealth without believing it defines your worth. You can love deeply without making another person responsible for your happiness. You can appreciate beautiful moments without trying to hold on to them forever. That is freedom. You begin to enjoy life instead of clinging to it. You become grateful instead of desperate. You become peaceful instead of constantly chasing the next destination, and something remarkable begins to happen. The endless noise inside your mind starts becoming quieter. Not because the world has given you everything you wanted, but because you no longer expect the world to fill what the ego can never fill. Yet even after the ego loses its power through endless desire, it still has one final weapon. It begins rewriting your past. It takes ordinary memories, painful moments, and small disappointments, and quietly turns them into stories that shape your entire identity. Most people never realize they are no longer living their lives. They are living the stories their ego keeps telling them. And that is the illusion we will uncover next. 3. The invisible stories your ego creates to keep you suffering. Imagine waking up one morning and putting on a pair of glasses without realizing the lenses are covered in a faint gray color. You walk outside. The trees seem dull. The sky looks lifeless. People appear cold and distant. By the end of the day, you conclude that the world itself has lost its beauty. But the world never changed. Only the way you were looking at it did. The Buddha taught that the ego works in much the same way. It does not simply react to life. It interprets life. And those interpretations slowly become the stories you believe about yourself, about other people, and about the world. The strange part is that most people never question these stories. They assume that because a thought appears in the mind, it must be true. But a thought is not the truth. It is only one possible way of looking at reality. Yet the ego loves turning possibilities into certainty. A single painful experience becomes a lifelong belief. One rejection becomes, no one will ever truly love me. One failure becomes, I'm just not good enough. One betrayal becomes, people can never be trusted. One embarrassing moment becomes, everyone is judging me. Have you noticed how quickly the mind creates these conclusions? It takes one chapter of your life and writes the ending to the entire book. This is one of the ego's favorite tricks, because stories are easier to protect than truth. Truth is alive. It changes. It grows. Stories remain frozen. Imagine hearing only the first 5 minutes of a movie before someone suddenly turns off the screen. Would it make sense to guess how the movie ends? Of course not. Yet this is exactly what the ego does. It experiences one painful moment and immediately decides what your entire future will look like. Perhaps someone left you years ago. The event lasted a few minutes. The relationship ended. Life moved on, but the ego refused to let the story end there. Instead, it kept replaying the memory, again and again and again, not because it wanted healing, but because repeating the story keeps the ego alive. Every time you replay the memory, the emotions return. The hurt feels fresh. The disappointment feels new. The anger feels real again. Even though the event is over, the suffering continues, not because of what happened, but because of the story the ego keeps telling. The Buddha once compared the human mind to someone being struck by 2 arrows. The first arrow is the painful event itself. No one can avoid it. Loss happens. Failure happens. People leave. Dreams change. Life is uncertain. But then comes the second arrow. The ego shoots it. It says, "Why did this happen to me? I'll never recover. My life will never be the same. This always happens to me." The first arrow causes pain. The second arrow creates suffering. And most of the suffering people carry is not from the first arrow. It comes from the second. Think about how often your mind argues with the past. If only I had said something different. If only I had made another decision. If only I had seen the warning signs. If only I had tried harder. The ego loves the words, "if only," because they create an imaginary world, where the past could have been different. But no matter how many times you replay yesterday, you cannot change a single moment of it. The only thing that changes is your present peace. Imagine carrying an old photograph everywhere you go. Every morning you take it out. Every afternoon you stare at it. Every evening you cry over it. Years pass. Your life keeps moving forward, but your heart remains trapped inside a single picture. The photograph is not holding you. Your hand is. The ego rarely traps you with chains. It traps you with attachment to old stories. Perhaps you have noticed this in conversations with other people. Someone gives you simple advice. Instead of listening, your mind immediately begins defending itself, not because the advice is wrong, but because it threatens the story you have been telling yourself. The ego would rather protect a painful identity than allow it to disappear. That is why some people hold on to labels like, "I've always been unlucky," "I'm just an anxious person," "I always ruin relationships," "Nothing ever works out for me." These may have started as temporary experiences, but after being repeated hundreds of times, they become part of a person's identity. Eventually, they stop saying, "I experienced pain." They begin saying, "I am my pain." That is one of the greatest illusions the ego ever creates. Pain is something you experience. It is not who you are. Sadness visits you. It does not become you. Fear passes through your mind. It does not define your nature. Thoughts appear and disappear like clouds crossing the sky. But awareness remains like the open sky itself. The clouds may be dark. They may be heavy. They may even hide the sun for a while, but they never damage the sky. Your awareness is the same. No painful story has ever changed what you truly are. Only the ego keeps insisting that it has. The Buddha encouraged his students to become observers instead of storytellers. The moment a painful thought appears, simply ask, "Is this reality, or is this another story my mind is creating?" That single question creates space. And inside that space, freedom quietly begins. You stop believing every thought that enters your mind. You stop treating every emotion as permanent. You stop assuming every memory deserves another replay. Instead of becoming trapped inside the story, you become the one watching it unfold. At first, this feels unfamiliar. The ego becomes uncomfortable because it realizes you are no longer obeying every thought it creates. Its stories begin losing their power. Its drama begins fading. Its voice becomes quieter. But then it reaches for one final hiding place. When it can no longer control you with identity, when it can no longer control you with endless desire, when it can no longer control you with old stories, it creates constant noise. Because there is one place the ego never wants you to enter, a place where every illusion begins to dissolve. That place is complete silence. 4. Why your ego is terrified of silence, presence, and letting go. Have you ever wondered why it feels so difficult to simply sit quietly for 10 minutes? No phone, no music, no conversation, no television, no scrolling, nothing to distract you. For many people, this sounds almost impossible. The moment the room becomes quiet, the mind becomes louder. Thought after thought begins to appear. You remember a conversation from years ago. You start planning tomorrow. You imagine arguments that have never happened. You replay mistakes you cannot change. You worry about problems that do not even exist yet. Within a few minutes, your body is still, but your mind has traveled through dozens of different worlds. Have you ever asked yourself why? Why does the mind seem so afraid of stillness? The Buddha understood that silence is not uncomfortable because something is wrong with silence. Silence is uncomfortable because the ego cannot survive there for very long. Think about a lake on a windy day. As long as the wind keeps blowing, the surface is covered with waves. The water never reflects the sky clearly. But the moment the wind stops, the waves slowly disappear. The lake becomes perfectly still. For the first time, it reflects everything exactly as it is. Your mind is very much like that lake. The wind is the constant movement of the ego, its endless opinions, its fears, its desires, its memories, its judgments, its need to compare, its need to control, its need to become someone. As long as that wind never stops, you cannot clearly see your own true nature. The ego knows this. That is why it keeps your attention moving from one thing to another. It whispers, check your phone. Think about tomorrow. Remember what they said. What if something goes wrong? Don't just sit there. Do something. Think about something. Fix something. Notice how the ego is always pulling your attention away from this moment, because this moment asks nothing from it. The present moment does not care about your reputation. It does not care how successful you are. It does not care who insulted you yesterday. It does not care about the mistakes you made 10 years ago. It simply exists. And in that simple existence, the ego begins losing its power. Imagine a candle burning inside a dark room. As long as the room remains dark, the candle appears bright and important. But the moment the morning sun enters through the window, the candle is still there. Yet its light is no longer dominating the room. Awareness is like the rising sun. The ego is like the candle. The ego does not disappear because you fight it. It simply becomes less important when awareness grows brighter. This is why the Buddha placed so much importance on meditation. Many people believe meditation is about stopping thoughts. It is not. Trying to force the mind to become empty usually creates even more frustration. Meditation is something much simpler. It is learning to watch the mind without becoming trapped inside it. Imagine sitting beside a busy road. Hundreds of cars pass by every hour. Some are beautiful, some are noisy, some are old, some are fast. Would you chase every car that passes? Of course not. You simply watch them come and watch them go. Thoughts work exactly the same way. Some thoughts are joyful, some are painful, some are completely meaningless. The ego wants you to jump into every passing thought and ride wherever it takes you. Awareness simply watches. This changes everything, because the moment you stop chasing every thought, you discover something remarkable. Most thoughts disappear on their own. You never had to fight them. You only had to stop feeding them. Think about a campfire. Every time you throw another piece of wood into it, the flames grow stronger. But if you quietly stop feeding the fire, what happens? The flames slowly become smaller. Eventually, they disappear by themselves. The ego works exactly the same way. Every argument you replay is another piece of wood. Every comparison is another piece of wood. Every worry about tomorrow is another piece of wood. Every regret about yesterday is another piece of wood. The fire is not keeping itself alive. You are unknowingly feeding it. The Buddha never asked people to destroy the ego. He simply taught them to stop feeding it. This is a very different way of living. Someone criticizes you. Instead of immediately defending yourself, you breathe, you observe. You ask, is my awareness actually being harmed, or is only my ego reacting? Someone receives the opportunity you wanted. Instead of becoming jealous, you notice the feeling. You allow it to pass. You refuse to build another story around it. A difficult memory appears. Instead of replaying it for the 100th time, You gently return your attention to this breath, to this moment, to what is actually here. Little by little, the mind becomes quieter, not because life becomes perfect, but because you stop arguing with reality. This is one of the deepest teachings of the Buddha. Suffering is not created because life keeps changing. Suffering is created because the ego refuses to let life change. It wants every pleasant moment to last forever. It wants every painful moment to disappear immediately. It wants people to behave exactly as it expects. It wants the future to unfold according to its plans. But reality has never made those promises. Imagine standing in the middle of a river. The water is always moving. You can either keep fighting the current until you become exhausted, or you can learn to move with it. The river does not become peaceful because it stops flowing. It becomes peaceful because you stop resisting its nature. Life is that river. Everything changes. Every season passes. Every relationship evolves. Every emotion rises and falls. Every breath comes and every breath goes. The ego fears this truth because it wants permanence in a world built on change. But awareness is different. Awareness does not cling. It simply witnesses, like the open sky watching clouds drift by. The clouds never ask permission to arrive. They never apologize for leaving. They simply come, and they go. Your thoughts, your emotions, your fears, your successes, even your identity, are no different. The more deeply you understand this, the less tightly you hold on to everything. And strangely enough, the less you cling to life, the more fully you begin to live it. You laugh more freely. You love more deeply. You forgive more easily. You become lighter, not because you own more, but because you are carrying less. Yet there is still one final illusion remaining. Even after the ego loses its power through identity, through endless desire, through painful stories, and through constant mental noise, it still protects one secret above all others. A secret so profound that the moment you truly see it, the entire foundation of the ego begins to disappear. And this is the one truth. Your ego has been hiding from you since the very beginning. 5. The one truth. Your ego will fight until the very end to hide. Imagine waking from a dream in the middle of the night. While you were dreaming, everything felt completely real. The people were real. The fear was real. The joy was real. The danger was real. Your heart raced. Your emotions were powerful. Your body reacted as though everything was truly happening. But the moment you opened your eyes, the entire dream disappeared. Not because you defeated it, not because you argued with it, not because you escaped from it. It disappeared because you woke up. The Buddha taught that awakening works in much the same way. The ego does not disappear because you fight against it. It loses its power the moment you clearly see what it has always been. A misunderstanding, nothing more. This is the final truth the ego never wants you to discover. It wants you to believe that you are the voice inside your head. It wants you to believe that every thought belongs to you. It wants you to believe that every emotion defines you. It wants you to believe that every memory is your identity. But stop for a moment and look carefully. If you can hear the voice inside your mind, who is listening? If you can notice your thoughts, who is noticing them? If you can observe your emotions changing, who remains unchanged while they come and go? These questions are simple, but they have the power to completely transform your life. Close your eyes for just a moment. Notice a single thought appearing. Perhaps it is about your work. Perhaps it is about someone you miss. Perhaps it is about tomorrow. Now watch what happens. The thought appears. It stays for a few seconds. Then it disappears. Another thought takes its place. Then another. Then another. Thoughts move like clouds across the sky. They are always changing. But something has remained constant through every single thought you have ever experienced. The one who is aware. When you were 5 years old, your thoughts were different. When you became a teenager, your thoughts changed again. Your dreams changed. Your fears changed. Your opinions changed. Your body changed. Your friends changed. Your goals changed. Even your personality has changed over the years. Almost everything you call me has changed, yet something has remained quietly present through every stage of your life. The silent awareness that has watched every moment. It watched your first smile. It watched your greatest success. It watched your deepest heartbreak. It watched your happiest memories. It is watching these very words right now. That awareness has never needed praise to become valuable. It has never become smaller because someone rejected you. It has never become more complete because someone admired you. It has simply remained, like the open sky watching seasons pass. The ego never wants you to notice this, because the moment you do, its greatest illusion begins to collapse. Imagine an actor performing on a stage. For years, he plays the same character. He laughs, he cries, he wins battles, he loses everything. Night after night, he becomes so absorbed in the role that he forgets he is acting. Then one evening, the play ends. The curtain falls. He walks backstage. He removes the costume. He looks into a mirror. For the first time in years, he smiles. Not because he became someone new, but because he finally remembered who he had always been. This is what awakening feels like. It is not becoming a different person. It is remembering that you were never the character your ego convinced you to protect. Think about how much of your life has been spent defending an image, trying to prove yourself, trying to be accepted, trying to appear successful, trying to avoid criticism, trying to control what other people think, trying to become enough. Now imagine setting all of that down. Imagine waking up tomorrow with no need to impress anyone, no need to compare yourself with anyone, no need to win every argument, no need to prove your worth. How light would your heart feel? The Buddha did not promise a life without pain. He never said that loss would disappear. He never said that difficult people would stop existing. He never promised that life would always go according to your plans. Instead, he pointed toward something far greater, a freedom that exists even when life is uncertain, a peace that remains even when circumstances change, a joy that does not depend on success, a love that does not depend on being loved in return. Because true freedom is not found by controlling the world. It is found by no longer being controlled by the ego. Imagine standing beside a river. For your entire life, you have been trying to stop the water from flowing. Every day you build another wall. Every day the river quietly moves around it. Eventually, you become exhausted. Then one day, you stop fighting. You sit beside the river. You watch the water move exactly as it always has. For the first time, you realize the river was never your enemy. Your resistance was, life has always been like that river. People will come. People will leave. Your body will change. Your circumstances will change. Your emotions will change. Your thoughts will change. Nothing in this world stands still. The ego spends its entire life demanding permanence from a world built upon change. And because that demand can never be fulfilled, it keeps suffering alive. But awareness asks for nothing. It simply witnesses, like the sky, allowing every cloud to pass without trying to hold on to a single one. This is why the Buddha said that peace is not something you create. It is something you uncover. It has been beneath the noise all along, beneath the fear, beneath the endless thinking, beneath every role you have played, beneath every story you have believed, beneath every mask you have worn. The truth is, you have spent years trying to fix yourself. But perhaps the deepest freedom comes from discovering that your true nature was never broken. It was only hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding. The ego wanted you to believe you were incomplete. It wanted you to keep chasing, keep comparing, keep proving, keep defending. Because as long as you remained busy becoming someone, you would never stop to notice who you already are. That is the greatest lie the ego has ever told, and that is the one truth it never wanted you to see. The moment you stop believing every thought, the moment you stop protecting every label, the moment you stop chasing an identity that constantly changes, you begin to experience something words can barely describe. A deep stillness, a quiet freedom, a peace that cannot be taken away because it was never given by the world in the first place. Perhaps this is why the Buddha smiled so often, not because life became easier, but because he finally saw through the greatest illusion of all. He realized that the prison door had never truly been locked. It was only the ego that kept insisting it was. And the moment you see that with your own heart, not just with your mind, you take the first true step toward a freedom that no person, no failure, no fear, and no passing moment can ever take away. If today's message spoke to something deep inside you, don't let it become just another thought your mind quickly forgets. Spend a few moments today simply watching your thoughts, instead of believing every one of them. Because the moment you become aware of the ego, it slowly begins to lose its power over your life. If this journey helped you see yourself a little more clearly, consider subscribing and joining us for more timeless Buddhist wisdom that brings peace, clarity, and freedom to everyday life. Until next time, protect your awareness, observe your mind, and remember, you are not the voice inside your head. You are the silent awareness that has been peacefully watching it all along.